morning. My name is Avi Ackerson. This is an interview about Scuola Pizza for the Gainesville Business History Oral History Project run by the Inquire Capitalism Program of the History Department at the University of Florida. Understand that for us and for the public, the information you are providing is a gift, and as it is an incredible historical resource, and we dearly appreciate it. This interview will be available as part of UF Oral History Collections and through UF Digital Collections on YouTube. Please introduce yourself. What's your full name, and could you please spell it?
Absolutely. My name is Bill Sinis, Billsinis, and I'm the owner of Scuola Pizza.
All right, perfect. Let's jump right into it. So,
Mhm.
tell me about yourself. A little bit of a life story. When did you move to Greece? Where are you from? Or move
Sure,
to
sure.
Florida and Greece?
Oh, well, I've been to several places actually. I was born in Dyersburg, Tennessee, so I'm a Tennessee native from Greek immigrant parents who immigrated to the United States in the mid 70s. So I was born in the United States. But around 1 years old, I moved back to Greece and um, stayed just about till I was about seven. I stayed with my grandmother there. I did travel a couple times to the States. My parents traveled to see me, but it was a typical life in the 70s of immigrant parents who were trying to make it in America. So I didn't have the prototypical home. There was several times where I went months without seeing my mother. And these stories are pretty common uh, if for people that have immigrated to the United States and have children. And sometimes in the restaurant business, it's so demanding, it's hard to know what to do when you have small kids. And so that was the case. So I was a cradle restaurateur per se. I grew up in the back of the restaurant. When I would come home from school, I didn't go home. I came to the restaurant. So even though I didn't work in a restaurant till I got older, you do get a and besides my parents, all my uncles are restaurant owners and the extended family. And so even though I didn't start working in the restaurant business until I was in my late teens, you do kind of get a feel, even from a young age, what a successful restaurant looks like as opposed to a not successful one. What a clean restaurant looks like and an organized one as opposed to a disorganized one. And when you get to walk into tens and tens into hundreds of kitchens from a young age, you get a good idea of what it takes to be successful. So that's kind of the basis of how I got started in the restaurant business. Now, growing up, I grew up, went to school in Tennessee, uh, graduated from the University of Mississippi with a Bachelor of Arts of Education, hence the word scuola. That means school in Italian, right? Because I'm an education major. If anybody comes into the restaurant, they'll notice two things pretty vividly: the educational artwork, and my wife's a teacher as well, and we homeschooled for some time our kids, and we have six of them. So we had a pretty full classroom. But two things you'll notice, Scuola Pizza, is it's educational artwork. So I'm a more of a traditionalist of when it comes to educating kids, and that's why I put cursive writing on there and things that you used to see back in the 80s. And the fact that I'm Greek Orthodox, so you see tons of icons in there. I kind of blended together in this restaurant all my years of experience. We've opened up as a family. We've opened up several restaurants, Italian, American. We've had so in 30 something years we've dabbled with everything, and all this together is our menu. So that's why you'll see Greek food, Italian food, and you'll also see a Philly cheesesteak on there or a burger, because that's I kind of took from all the menus because right now in Tennessee, my family owns five restaurants and my uncles and everybody. So what I did was I basically put together everything that I liked through the years without trying to pitch it wholly into a category. People say, is it Greek or is it Italian? I'm like, I don't know if it's necessarily fully Greek or Italian because I do have a Philly cheesesteak and I have a burger. And so, what is Squalo Pizza? Um, when I the how I found myself in Florida is a pretty funny story. I left. I had opened two restaurants in Tennessee, which still exist to this day. They're called Olympic Steak and Pizza. One's in Millington, Tennessee, and one's in Oakland, Tennessee. But once my third child was born, and we had 3 kids in 3 years, it started to become evident that it was very difficult to raise your kids normally with my schedule. And so, and I was pretty burned out. I opened my first restaurant when I was 29 years old. And
Wow.
yeah. And so, and the second one at 2 years later. These are big restaurants. They're about 240 seat capacity. And 29 is not young, but unfortunately, to open up a restaurant, it's very difficult at that age because what's needed is kind of the mindset that I have now at 46. The 30s teach you a lot about relationships, and you mature into leadership roles. And I had recently done an interview with the Gainesville City Lifestyle, and that's kind of what I told them was that it takes years to understand relationships. Relationships are not something that's easily understood when you're in your 20s, of what it takes between whether you're a friend or whether it's an employer-employee relationship, and how you treat that relationship depending on if you see them every day, or if you see them once a week, or if you see them once a month, or in my case now, when you see them every 3 months, my staff. So you have to tweak these relationships accordingly. Um, I stayed in Greece for 4 years, which also really opened my eyes to a lot of things. If anybody's traveled to Europe, they know that the 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 culinary experience is night and day different. And that's no disrespect to the state of Florida or to the United States. It's just when you go to France, Greece, Italy, the way that they present things is so, especially in these touristy areas, is Maria, Maria, the Milauto. That's my fifth kid. This reminds me of that BBC broadcast one time he was talking. Pese ya, beta, beta. Cristi porta. Nene, pigine, pigine. And so, um, what was I saying? Oh, so 4 years of seeing a different level of of just a dining out experience. I came back, I felt a lot more prepared. Initially, I'd moved to Gulf Shores, Alabama in 2019 to open up what was going to be Scuola Pizza there. And one second. I gotta find. In Greece, they don't you can't lock the door. You have to actually have the key to lock the door. So forgive me. So
No
my
worries.
6-year-old. So anyways, I was going to open up Scuola Pizza in Gulf Shores, Alabama. I moved back in 2019. I tried. Nothing worked out. It was unbelievable because I had already done this before, and finding the space and all that, nothing worked out. Finally found the space, and COVID hit that week when all the restrictions came. And so I was there stuck. I'd already bought a home. I had been living there nearly a year. And we decided to visit a monastery, which is in Williston, Florida. Now, at that time, I didn't have any idea of the relationship between Williston, Florida, and Gainesville, Florida, because I'd only been to the northern part of Florida my whole life. From Tennessee, we would just go maybe to Pensacola or something. So when I drove by and saw Gainesville, I said, I'm a college football fan, so I knew about Gainesville. I said, Gainesville's this close. So we went and visited the monastery. We loved it. We loved the monastery. And I decided to come back a second trip, met a gentleman there that owned the plaza on the northwest side, and made a deal in a day where I couldn't make it in 6 months in Gulf Shores. And that's how Scuola Pizza started.
That's an impressive history right there.
Yeah, well, it's obviously there's a lot more, but I think that's basically how I'm in Gainesville, not being from Gainesville. That's how I got there.
So growing up, most of your family was kind of in the restaurant industry. So when did you started working in restaurants as a teen? Was that in your family's restaurants or in?
Yeah, yeah. I started by serving tables, and then after I learned serving tables. Look, I told you I had 6 kids, right? Πρέπει να φύγεις. Δεν μπορείς να είσαι μέσα. Έλα. Βγες έξω. Ναι, μετά. Βγες. So yeah, I started serving tables, really honestly, seriously after college. So at 22. And then I learned back of the house in my mid 20s. And then, and I managed 26 to 29. And 29 I opened my first restaurant.
Was there any, I guess, pivotal moments in the opening of Scuola where you kind of put together the design, the menu, anything like that? Any inspiration from the other restaurants?
There's a restaurant in Nafplio, Greece called Scuola Pizza. And when I visited it, at the time I didn't know what Scuola meant, honestly, and I didn't Google it. I liked the name. It was a very popular restaurant. And without Googling the name and without putting everything together, I just thought it was cool. I said, in Greece, there's a lot of eateries there's a lot of eateries that are also coffee shops in Europe. So I was like, boy, that's interesting. They got all these books, all these shelves where you can just grab a book and read, and you can eat, and you can drink coffee. And ultimately we had started at Scuola Pizza with like coffee and all that. It just once as we got busier and busier, trying to train people to be real baristas to where they can make like Freddo cappuccinos and mochachinos and all that. You can train where 2 or 3, but as you get more and more staff, it's hard to train everybody to make really good coffee. So we kind of took it off the menu, and it's very time consuming. By the way, if you got a packed restaurant, the whole table orders cappuccinos, it becomes tough. So, but I was inspired by that restaurant in Nafplio, Greece. I thought it was unique. I had never seen anything like that before, and obviously we did it. I wanted to do it a little bit more vintage, and I wanted to integrate orthodoxy in there because orthodoxy is, Orthodox Christianity is so not. It's if you ever go to Jerusalem, that's all you see is Orthodox Christianity. If you go to the hub of Christianity, uh, and it's kind of strange where you can actually go to the United States and if you tell people that you're Orthodox, they don't even know if that's a Christian denomination. So it's pretty mind-boggling on some parts of the world. That's all they know. And then you go to other parts of the world where nobody knows about it. And I thought it was it's very interesting because there's so much history. So everything that we've tried to do there is to not make it all in Europe. It's never about the food, Avi. It's never just about like who's got the best deal. It's always about the experience because in Europe they come together to talk. And a lot of people, and a lot of times you'll go out and eat dinner in Greece. And some people, the conversation will get so deep, whether you're talking politics, sports, religion, family life, family problems. Half of the table doesn't even eat. They forget to eat because they're engrossed in the conversation. You can't always replicate that because that's kind of a cultural thing. But I didn't want it just to be people are coming in, sitting at a table, eating and leaving. I wanted them to see the icons. I wanted them to see the books. I wanted to see the educational artwork. I wanted them to I wanted the ambiance to filter into the dining experience and actually, and it's not just, oh, that's a pretty wall, but you're like, look, let me go get that book. It's a history of Gainesville, where we got a book where you can see the roads in Gainesville like 200 years ago. So that kind of deal.
And what was it like opening up the food truck as well and balancing that with the restaurant?
Oh yeah, the food truck came out of when I opened the restaurant. We were struggling, and nobody knew about us. Um, and so I was telling my wife, I said, I never opened up a restaurant in a city like Gainesville. The other two restaurants I had opened in rural Tennessee, it, these were type of areas where when a you eatery would eat, it was the talk of the town. So anytime you opened, you were super busy for a month because that was the cool thing to do. I never opened up at a place where especially on the northwest side where it's not Archer Road and it's not Celebration Point. Um, so in the uphill battle in the beginning, we were struggling, and I said, how am I going to get my name to another part of Gainesville where there's more people, where there's a younger crowd? And my wife actually called me. She says, they have a food truck that's available at Midpoint Eatery. At that point, I'll be honest now, I had been back in the States from Greece going on 2.5 years. And the whole time I was trying to opening a business. I mean, anybody that's opened up a restaurant business, especially away from their base where they don't have extended family to maybe help them out with something, they know how exhausting that could be. So at that time, I was just burned out. And my wife's like, go look at it, go look at it. So I met with the gentleman there from Trimark and he showed me, and I still didn't have a lot of, I just, I saw the potential there, but I just lacked energy because I was just exhausted because I was working about 13 hours a day every single day. And so I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm gonna bring the elder from the monastery, and if he likes it, I'll do it, and if he doesn't, I won't. And I brought him, and he loved it. The abbot, the abbot from the Greek Orthodox monastery in Williston, he fell in love with that area, and he says, "Open it up." I said, "Okay." So I got the equipment. It's a whole different thing because the food trucks there have their own equipment, but they're not really set up for pizza places. They're set up for different cuisine. So I had to take some things out, bring in my own equipment, refrigeration. And we have been so well accepted at that park. Like people are in and around that area love the comfort food of a Euro pita wrap, fries, and a drink. They love that. So all the offices around there, the students. And I'll be honest, God's blessed me with really good workers, but also super professional. And it's not, you can train them all you want, but there's certain workers that have it and certain workers that don't. And I've been blessed where I got 3 or 4 mainstay people there at the food truck that have a personality that they've gotten to know the student base. And now it's just kind of like, and we're going on our 3rd year, and so the longer you stay there, people get, like, when I go back all the time, I see the same students come at the same time every day. So it's been a blessing. Midpoint's been a blessing. I had never done a food park, a food trailer, so it was a learning curve just being in a typical restaurant. But it's great working with only 2 employees a day as opposed to 12, 13 is great. If those two show up, you're good. So that's it.
So what were some of the biggest obstacles you faced in opening Scuola here in Gainesville? And obviously you mentioned kind of struggling to get going at first and then, the
Yeah,
food truck opening.
that restaurant has closed several times. There's a reason why it's really hard to make successful a restaurant that's closed 3 or 4 or 5 times previously. People have had bad experiences in that same location, and it becomes a mental thing. Um, but at the time, it's not like I had the money when I came to Gainesville. It's not like I had the money to to take what they say call a cold shell in a plaza and put in my own walk-in refrigerators, walk-in coolers, vent hoods, hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s. So I took a chance, but again, I came. Um, I felt that God had directed me down there. So in a way, I had um, I had this inner belief, even at the hardest of times. I'll give you an example. In the first year and a half, there was twice that I was ready to call a staff meeting to close because I had run out of money. I was still making money from Tennessee, from royalties from the other two locations, but it wasn't enough to cover the money I was losing at Scuola Pizza. So I was basically taking all the money I was making from one end, from my other income, putting it all in this restaurant, and it was eating it all up, and it still wasn't paying the bill. So after struggling 13, 14 months of this situation, I was about ready to call a staff meeting to let the staff know. In that week, it, dare I say, the next day, I get a check, COVID relief check, $33,000. Now the number is significant to me because as a Christian, you know that Christ died at 33. So that kept me open. 33,000 was gave me, it didn't solve my problems, but what it did, it gave me a little life. So I said, okay, I can go 2, 3 months. And it gave me time to alter some things. 4 or 5 months go by. The situation hasn't gotten any better. And I'm ready to call the second time a staff meeting. The same week, another check comes in from the government for 33,000. At that point, I knew that we were going to make it. I mean, I didn't know how, but I knew that this was God's will that this place stay open. So, um, the biggest obstacle is getting recognized in a big city. It's very, very hard. It's when people there's a lot of eateries. Everybody knows Gainesville has lots of eateries, but America has a lot of eateries. We're oversaturated with it. It is a very difficult thing to redirect people's steps to you that have been going to Pomodoros, to Paisanos, to Satchels, to all these places, and now you're trying to get them to convince them to redirect and to come to you and then to keep them there. Very difficult. And I have to give full credit to my staff for that because, again, like I tell them all the time, we've continued to grow as a business because you are likable people. I have a very likable staff that people get comfortable with. I can sit here and tell you we have the best pizza in Gainesville. That may or may not be true. I can sit here and tell you we have great food, and I think we do. But lots of places have great food. Lots of places have great food. What separates you now if you don't have that perfect corner location on Archer Road is the staff that you have. If the staff that you have are people that love interacting with other people, they enjoy their job, that positive energy is felt. It's felt by the people. They get a sense that they're very welcome there. So as much as I would like to take the credit for us growing, I have to give that credit to the staff that's been, which half of them have been with me since basically I opened. Young
Wow.
and another, I think another thing that's very uh, completely different than any of the other restaurants that I opened is my staff, after being with me over 3 years, is right now 20 years old. They started at 16. So I got them as sophomores in high school or going into their junior year. And those are my veterans now. So for all the talk of this generation of young people that get so much flack for this and for that, uh, I this group of young adults here, I've never had a better one. And I've seen staffs in the 80s and I've seen staffs in the 90s, and this staff of 2024 beats them all. So that's my testimony for the new generation of kids. There's tons of hope. There's tons of hope.
So how would you kind of describe your relationship with the staff throughout kind of the time of your restaurant?
It, this was the first restaurant that I opened. Again, the last restaurant I opened was 2009. 2009, I was 31 years old. The 2021, when I opened this, I was 43, and the staff was younger when I hired them. So it was a very, very father-child relationship. I'm in my mid 40s, and when I opened this restaurant, I was 43 years old, and my staff was 16, 17 years old. And I'm a completely different person now because I have 6 kids of my own. When I opened my first 2 restaurants, I had no kids of my own. There's a whole different way that you treat people's kids when you have your own kids. And I can't say that I ever was I felt that I always treated my staff on everything, but you get a deeper understanding of why somebody may be late to work now. When you have kids and you yourself are late, me, the owner, can be late to a meeting now. Before, when I didn't have kids, I was never late for anything. Who was going to make me late? It was surely wasn't going to be a sick kid or something like that. So when you start to have family and the problems of family life, you become a lot more grounded and based and understand that, hey, there may be a real legitimate reason that this kid showed up 10 minutes to work. So I wouldn't just approach him as an employee that showed up to work. I'll be like, hey, what's going on? Is everything okay? They're like, yeah, it was just traffic and everything. I was like, okay. So I understood it. Now, of course, if it's chronic, it's a problem. And we don't, and till this day, I won't allow that because there are a couple of my employees that just, you know, they see 5 o'clock on the schedule and they have to show up 5:05. So I have a couple of employees that I purposely, and it's kind of funny, I put 4:50 on the schedule so they can actually get there at 5 because it's mental. And I tell them it's mental with you. If I put 5, you're going to be late. But if I put 4:50, you'll show up at 4:57 and you'll be on time. So and what I realize now at 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 this age is that running a restaurant is you it's part of it's not just about making money anymore. And it's not about anything. You have to understand that you're influencing young people, that your example will stay with them because they're with you a lot of hours, the young staff. And it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. I've learned to just be more patient. And as you get older, you don't try. When you're a young owner, you try to use more fear, intimidation, so they'll respect you. Because your gray hair doesn't is not going to get respect, or your wrinkle is not going to get respect, because you look so young that you have to use other tactics for them to respect you. When you get older, your gray hair shows your experience. They respect you easier. They approach you differently, and conversely, you change as an owner as well. So this has been the most enjoyable restaurant, and looking back on it, I probably looking back on some of the way that I ran my restaurants when I first started in the business. You always look back and say, "Man, what was I doing there? I mean, what was I thinking there?" But I think that's life in general. That's why we live life so we can look back and say, 15 years ago, you should be saying, "What was I thinking?" If you're not, then I don't know I don't know what you're doing. So that's my opinion.
Um, what would you consider your greatest success so far in having Scuola and I guess in your businesses as a whole?
I think my greatest success is I was able to let go. I was able to let go and trust other people. I think that was my biggest going into this restaurant. I was not able to let go. I was if you asked any of my staffs at my previous restaurants, they definitely would say I would micromanage them and make sure that I would. I don't. I don't think I was overbearing, but I also was not giving them the ability to grow from their mistakes because I didn't want to see mistakes, and so mistakes irritated me. And so um, when I opened this restaurant and it was struggling, part of thinking that you're not going to make it is it kind of as opposed to opening a restaurant and booming, is you kind of lose the fear of failure. Because once you don't think it's going to make it, you kind of just you back off a little bit. And I got to that phase. I was like, no, it's okay. When they would cut the onions wrong, I would just casually say, hey, because in my mind, I'm like, we're not going to make it anyway. Why am I going to get up? Like, hey, we need to cut the onions like this. It looks better. Oh, they would be like, okay, Mr. Bill. Or I would just correct them in a way. So that was the first step, is that I realized that it doesn't need to be into the world every mistake that it's okay for them to make mistakes. That's what they're there for. Number two, uh, I got very sick, and this was a valuable lesson, and I think this is what helped me. Everything turned from this point. Got very sick, and I could not go to the restaurant for nearly 2 weeks. And I thought, at especially in the beginning, that if I was not there, um, if I was not there every single day, the restaurant would collapse without me there, because I was the reason it was being done correctly. So 2 weeks went by, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I can't. When I go back, I don't even know if it's going to be standing. I don't even know if we're going to have any customers left, and all these. And when I go back, I realize that nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. The, 14 days later, my absence had not changed anything. And at the same time, one of my good friends from college came to see me. He was running, and he's still running a very successful company in Texas. And he told me, he said, if you feel that you got to be at the restaurant every day, you don't have the right people. He says, you think you got to be every day? I said, I do, but that's probably me. He says, no, if you think you got the right people in place, let them grow, let them make their mistakes, you correct them. But if you have to let them, you got to get away from here. Of course, I don't think he actually meant for me to move to Greece, but I took his words to heart and I just left the whole country. But we've grown 25% since I've left the country.
Wow.
January 2023, I left, and we have gone nothing but up at a higher, faster rate as when I was there. They take it upon themselves. I mean, if you get the right people in place, and you've trained them right. Part of it, though, you do have to be with them in the beginning for that foundation to be set. But then they can grow much faster without you being there, because the owner, because he's financially tied to the restaurant, and he's tied with the banks and with the payments and all that. It's like a flower that it just is getting too much shade and not enough sun. If you're always there shading them, they're just not going to grow. As soon as you back off and they get the sun, and they grow a lot faster like that. Because again, the owner is bringing in a lot of toxic um, energy at times, even if it's not, if he doesn't mean to. Because when a mistake is made, he's thinking about what these repercussions could be, as opposed to, it's a mistake, just teach him not to do it again and let's move on. So that's my biggest success with this restaurant, is that I'm finally realizing, even literally being born in the restaurant business, what it takes to run a successful restaurant at this age.
Uh, what would you describe your relationship as with other businesses in Gainesville, whether in the food park or elsewhere?
They're great. Uh, I've had great relationships with the food park. Has actually been a rotating kind of deck of businesses. Many have come, many have gone. But everybody there, I had a great relationship. I've always had a great relationship with any. We have. I tell my staff all the time, never ever under any circumstance criticize another eatery. It's not necessary. You are not making. I don't do it. I Nobody will ever catch me saying anything bad about any other eatery, especially another pizza place. Everybody's trying to make it in their own way, and so I think I don't know what the opinion of other restaurants and restaurant owners is of me and of Scuola Pizza, but anybody that's in this game understands that it's hard, and we need to, we have to be a fraternity, and I'm I'll be the first. I have eateries there, when they're about to run out of pizza boxes. Competitors, they'll call me and say, "Do you have 116-inch pizza boxes?" And I've never said no to any of them. That's, my success or my failure does not depend on if I'm trying to get some kind of a competitive advantage by not helping somebody out. So we all the time we try to help other eateries out, whatever, and I've had other ones help me out as well.
Um, how we talked a little bit about your menu at the beginning and mixing kind of the Mediterranean food with the American food. How did you come to that that balance and to kind of build it as it is today?
I've tweaked it from the original menu in 21. I basically keep what's selling, and I have shedded what doesn't sell and replaced it with other dishes. So that's kind of, you kind of get the for example, in Tennessee, I think that people would, I put a pork chop marsala at this location. It didn't sell near as much as it does in Tennessee. So according to where you're at, you have to tweak it. And this menu right now is it just about everything is selling right now. So and that doesn't mean we won't tweak it in the future, but everybody puts they put the menu out, they kind of wait and see what's going and what's not, and then they'll just start replacing it. So that's it. But you have to have a reservoir of entrees to be able to switch it out as well.
Mhm. And you said the pork chop marsala was kind of more popular in Tennessee. Have you noticed any other items that were more or less popular in Gainesville versus in Tennessee or?
Yeah, I think, I mean, here the anything that's vegan is more popular than it is Tennessee. Like we have
Mhm.
a vegan supreme pizza, we have another a Mount Athos pizza. Pre- na figete, pediamo. Dessa pan putin ama the figete to. Yeah, fi. Kristi borta yeah. Kristi. Um, so anything, the falafel wrap at the food truck is very popular. I don't think it would ever sell there in Tennessee. So now there are certain, like chicken parmesan is chicken parmesan. It was super popular in Tennessee. It's super popular in Gainesville. But there's a couple things where I don't I don't know. Beet salad here that we make a custom beet salad. I don't think it would sell hardly any in Tennessee where I was at. And it is almost my most popular side item here. So it depends. It depends. Gainesville, I grew up in West Tennessee, about an hour north of Memphis. Gainesville's different. Gainesville's different. And but I've been embraced here. The beauty of Gainesville is that it embraces family owned. People will go out of their way to leave a review for us. We have incredible reviews, and I would love to believe that we are one of the highest rated restaurants on Google because of how great we are. But something tells me that it's the mindset of the native Gainesville person that says, if it's great, I'm going to go. I got reviews, Google reviews that probably took 45 minutes to write. Pictures. People really go out of their way in Gainesville to help family-owned restaurants. And I'm sure we've had people that were dissatisfied with something, but they didn't run and say anything about it. I've had a lot of people reach out to me via email and say, "Hey, this happened. I just want to just want to let you know." Very discreetly, trying to help, and and it it's very important that the mindset of the community is is like what Gainesville is. It is. It's the only way that family-owned restaurants in today's environment can make it is if they're supported by the community as family-owned. In Gainesville, word of mouth on Facebook and the food truck and restaurant groups and all that, they play a huge role of really going on above and beyond to say, hey, I remember when we were first open and struggling, how many posts we had on Facebook saying, hey, these guys have incredible food, incredible pizza, please. And everybody's like, yeah, we need to get, and that's how it grows. It was a conscientious effort of, I remember one post in particular where one person said something negative about us, and before I even got a chance to read it, there was a whole group of people that had chimed in to defend us, and it was incredible. I was like, these people are incredible. I mean, to take time out of your day to defend a restaurant you don't even own, it was amazing. So God bless the people there. They have been very supportive.
Would you say that kind of your customer base at the main restaurant has changed? I know you said you had a lot of like regular students and the office employees at the food truck. Have you kind of seen those um, regulars kind of migrate towards the main restaurant and so forth?
I'll tell you what's changed is at the main location, we didn't have a younger crowd until the last year. Part of it's because we did about $50,000 in renovations. So we got these big chandeliers, we got a different ambiance, and we started seeing more and more of a younger crowd. We started seeing more students come in. We don't have a bar and televisions. Part of it is again to be able to interact. Like I was telling you, the Greek cultural thing, you cannot interact once there's a stimulant, right? If there's a stimulant like TV, it kills everything else I was talking about. So when I was struggling, there was people that would say, "Hey, don't you think maybe you should put a bar and TVs?" But it goes against what I was trying to do. I would have rather just closed it if I was going to put, and no disrespect to the places that put 30 TVs in there, but I don't think we need to be overstimulated more in the States. I think we need to go backwards a little bit and to kind of I kind of almost think we need to reset our mind and quit looking for stimulants. And I think what happens is now I'm seeing younger and younger people, and the beauty of seeing young people not looking at a TV, not looking at their smartphone, maybe getting a book or just talking, seeing people talk, eating and talking, and not looking at the hockey game and not looking. For me, it makes it all worth it. So, what was the question on that one again?
Um,
I've had 4 or 5 people come in and out, so I've
I
lost
think we
track
were
of,
talking about the customer base at the main restaurant
yeah,
after
the
the
customer
food truck.
base.
Yeah.
It's gotten younger.
Mhm.
It was I didn't have any of the college crowd until probably the fall of 23,
Wow.
and that's when I started seeing that they started making their way over and supporting us. And a part of that is the food truck as well. They liked our food from the food truck and came to try the whole menu because the food truck's nothing more than an abbreviated menu of the restaurant.
And I guess you touched on kind of the decor of the restaurant and the ambiance and kind of establishing that environment in there. The books that are on the back wall of the restaurant, did you pick those books out? What was the process like getting those on there?
I'll tell you, the process was that was an idea of Caitlin Smith. She's an interior designer in Gainesville. She did the entire design work both times, the original and then the renovation a couple years later. Uh, those are just random books that she bought, and they are actually you can't tell, but they are drilled into the wall. But they're drilled in a way where the how where they've drilled it is covered by a page, and the pages the way that they're stuck is also hid. So when you look at the books, you don't even know how they're up there
Right.
because you can't see any drill marks or anything like that. But she brought in a gentleman who did all of that in the restaurant. He was incredible, the perfectionist of perfectionists. It was just great, and but that's part of the ambiance. It was part of like the book decor.
Right. Um,
Have you ever eaten at the restaurant, Avi?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, good, good, good. So you're connecting to, I mean, to actually be a customer and to eat, uh, I think you can connect more with what I'm saying at this point.
Oh no, yeah, I love the pizza, the kind of the Mediterranean style and everything like that from the food truck and the
Oh,
restaurant.
great,
Yeah.
great, great. Thank you for your support.
No, thank you. It's the flaming cheese is incredible. The pizza is great. Everything. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Um, so what's it been like for you kind of stepping back and moving to Greece and still having the restaurants?
Yeah, a whole different experience. Never done it, never did it before. Didn't know how it would work out. But my kids were coming to a school to the age where we had to make a decision where we wanted them to go to school. And because you really can't take a kid from, from high school and say go to another country or anything like that. So once my eldest had gotten to 12, 13, she knew both languages very well, but it was getting to the point where the subjects get a lot harder and you just can't flip them past that point. So we decided I just put my trust in God and I just said, I have to move. I talked to my staff about it. They felt that they were up to the challenge. Um, and and so far they have been. So that was it. And in the beginning, it was a lot more stressful. I was traveling back and forth very often. But the last two times that I went, I noticed that nothing had changed. So I was going back and forth in the beginning every 40 days, 45 days. At one time I went after 2 weeks. I came here, something happened, I went back. But the last two times that I've gone, I've kind of seen the restaurant clean, customers happy, and I just don't see the point of going back that often. So as time goes on, I I I go even more rarely, but I'm talking to them every day. There's not a day that goes by that I'm not in communication with them just to see how it's going, everything like that. And they communicate with me, but my presence is not needed. They're the face of the restaurant now.
And I know you mentioned, Greek school and Greek language. Did you grow up speaking Greek as well, or did you learn it when you were there?
I grew up. It was my first language that I learned
Oh wow.
because my parents are Greek. So I grew up speaking Greek and I learned English when I permanently moved back in 1985. I was 7 years old. So kind of learned it, but I don't remember. I remember, to me, I've always knew both languages. I
Mhm.
don't really remember a time where somebody would speak English to me or Greek and I couldn't understand them. So, as they say, teach them when they're young.
Mhm.
The kids are sponges. I can't even learn 10 words of another language anymore. So it's true.
Um, Sorry, I'm just looking through my list of questions here.
And no,
Um,
go right ahead.
so have you thought about kind of expanding again? Maybe anything else or any future plans for the restaurant?
I think if the right opportunity comes by, definitely. In the right part of town with the right offer, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not opposed to it. Uh, I think at this point, it's a lot easier to go from two locations to three as opposed to the from 0 to 1.
Mhm.
No doubt about it. 0 to 1 is the hardest because you have nobody that knows what they're doing, nobody. But when you have the first one, you have a group of people that you can count on. Then you open a second, you have another group of people. And what happens is that as you get the right people, everybody that trains under the right people, they become the right people. And you start to just have this like this as they call coaching tree or family tree. You have a restaurant tree, and these branches start to go everywhere. So it becomes a lot easier to get a third location, fourth location, because you already got the parts in place. It's hard. It's never easy to open any location, but I think if the right um, there's different customers that want us to go to different parts of Gainesville, and some of them want us to go out to Tioga. If the right approach, if the right offer comes, we'll definitely look at it.
Awesome. Can you discuss any significant risks you took either in your businesses in Tennessee or here in Gainesville, and how did you go about it and how did it turn out?
I think the biggest risk was opening in this one here because I was alone. I didn't have family with me. Just it was me, my wife, and 6 kids, and I'm not from the state of Florida, so I didn't really have any cushion to fall on if I would have fell. The only people that I knew here were the fathers at the monastery. So there's always a great risk. I think anytime you open up but if you don't have any name recognition and you're not from the area and you don't have any kind of fallback plan in terms of if you get sick, who's going to look out for the restaurant and all that, I think that by far Scuola Pizza was the biggest risk. But again, I felt that God had called us here, so I felt a little bit differently about this one as opposed to the ones I opened in Tennessee. But yeah, definitely having family by. It's kind of like raising kids. If you have family by, you're not near as concerned because if something happens, you can just drop the kids off at family. But if you don't have family by, then it becomes a little bit more risky because what happens in an emergency situation. But thank God everything worked out. And I must say that we had a lot of support from the monastery. The fathers there at the church, uh, they would come. God bless them. At time, there was a time that they would come and they were the only table at the restaurant. And the elder there, who had told me to open up the food part, he would they would order two pizzas, and he would leave us $300
Wow.
to help. And he did this all the time to kind of raise my morale and to keep doing it. So I cannot say we didn't have any help, but
Sorry.
definitely no, it's okay. Definitely being in a new state where you don't know anybody, it's a different feeling.
Um, oh, I had a question. Oh, um, so in terms of growing your business, how would you kind of say attribute most of it to? Would you say there were any specific marketing strategies or anything that went into it, or would you say mostly word of mouth or
Yeah,
Google reviews?
word of mouth is the thing. Marketing can bring people in. So I found a gentleman who's done an incredible job marketing the business and doing promotions and specials and all that. People to sign up for our offer list, which is part of the game, and part of the game I didn't realize because I'm from I would say a little bit of an older school where you just put out the good food, good service, and people will come. Yeah, in today's world of Facebook and technology, you have to get to them and they'll at when they're at their house, and then they'll find you. So I think, uh, but once you get them in, the only way to keep them in is the service and the food. So marketing is only going to get them in the door once, but you have to keep them in the door. So you can do a great job marketing, but if you don't actually have the personnel and the food, it's it's short lived.
Um, I think that's all that I had on my end. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on, or anything else that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
No, no, no. Your questions were great. I think there's really nothing else I can add. I appreciate the interview. I've been doing more interviews here lately. Uh, People want to interview me because I think the reality is that it's a lot of people do find it a little bit interesting, and they do. I think sometimes they wonder who owns that restaurant. It can't be the 20-year-olds that are running the place. So a lot of times when they find me that I'm the owner, I last time I came in, it was pretty funny. Last time I came in, I worked a Friday night, and when I say I worked a Friday night, I was just checking, and I was noticing that all the tables were looking at me, and they were, and I told my manager, I said, it's like, she's like, because they don't know who you are. They just know that there's an owner that lives in Greece, but they're kind of think you kind of look Greek and you're walking around. So they're kind of, and that was like for a person that for years knew every customer in the restaurant, it's kind of a different feeling going in and nobody knows me. And so, yeah, a lot of times it's a unique story of a Tennessean opening up a restaurant that's run now by young Gainesville people. Yeah, it's unique, and I hope it continues.
Awesome. Thank you so much.